Mr Chairman, it's a pleasure to rise to speak to this bill, and I think the Honourable Member David Cunliffe raised a very good point at the beginning of his speech. This bill is not so noteworthy for what's in it, but what is not in it. He raised immediately the issue of the car park tax, which has been ditched since the first reading as this government fled for cover, recognising the foolishness of imposing these petty taxes. It's a shame, Mr Chairman, that the government did not see this earlier, that they did not look to avoid the paper girl and paper boy tax that they imposed in the previous budget, that they looked to not impose additional burdens on businesses who now have to collect child support, that they didn't look to not impose further red tape on businesses to deal with those child support changes. Mr Chair, this bill is full of these mild tinkering measures. It's typical of a tax bill put through under this government. Some of them can't be disputed as kind of sensible, step-by-step little measures, patching up tiny holes here and there, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic perhaps, and who can say that you wouldn't get a little bit of sun if you put the deck chairs over here rather than here on the Titanic and make the most of the time you have available. But that is not a long-term strategy. That is not a long-term strategy. This is a government with no plan. And that's what it comes back to, Mr Chairman. This government has been muddling along, making tinkering little tax changes here and there, taking the time of the House in order to rearrange the chairs on the tax Titanic. What it ought to do, and the member right over there quite rightly points out, this is the government with the worst economic record of any government in this country in the last 50 years. In the last 50 years, Mr Williams, quite right. And it is shocking, but it's in some ways no surprise. If you don't have a plan to change things, things will carry on as they are. Things will continue to get worse. The gap between rich and poor will continue to grow, and the studies coming out say that it is, that the gap between rich and poor in New Zealand has never been so great as it is now, that this government is shrinking median wages, that they've gone down since they took over, and the people in the street know that. Ordinary Kiwis know, when they go out to make their extraordinary contributions, they know that they are less well off than they used to be, because this government is acting in the interests of the wealthiest. Now, we know as citizens that something's not right when those people who have over $50 million in this country are not on the top tax rate. When people earning over $50 million are not declaring income of $70,000 or more. And what we also know is that 75% of New Zealanders who fall into that category are not paying the top tax rate. That cannot be right. Are there any members opposite who think that's right? Not one. Not one opposite thinks that those top tax earners shouldn't be on the top tax rate. And I'm not surprised. But will they do anything about it? Will they do anything about it? Mr Chairman, they will not. Is there anything in this bill to do anything about it? No, there is not. This is a bill that is all about the status quo, that is all about ensuring that those wealthiest New Zealanders are protected, and that those who can't avoid paying tax are clamped down upon more and more and more. Now, Mr Chair, if this bill was accompanied by pro-growth tax reform, we would be able to support it more enthusiastically. We will be supporting this bill because the measures in it are the little stitches that need to be made here and there to make things mildly better. But making sure that the deck chair is placed in the sunny spot on the Titanic is not enough. It's not enough. We think that the Titanic should also be repaired. We think it should be done up. And we think it should be sailing a course for a brighter future. There used to be another party that said that, but they don't say that anymore. They've given up that slogan because they know they're not delivering on it. They've just shifted away from their goal of closing the wage gap with Australia. They've given it away. We know that 200,000 Kiwis have moved permanently to Australia under their watch. They are a government that is not improving the lot of New Zealanders. Now, in this bill, we see also nothing that reverses the tax changes made in 2010 that saw the wealthiest 10% of earners in New Zealand get 40% of the value. And the bottom 20% of earners in New Zealand saw just 2% of the value of those tax cuts. That is why the gap between rich and poor is growing in this country, Mr. Chair. This bill does seek to make amendments to several acts, including the Tax Act 2007, the Tax Administration Act 1994, the Goods and Services Tax Act 1985, and the Income Tax Act 2004 in order to improve fairness. That's stuff we can't disagree with. Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member.
Mr. Chair.
David Clark.
What we see there is an attempt to tighten down on the rules for deducting expenditure on assets such as holiday homes, boats and aircraft that the user uses both privately and to earn income. I'd be interested if the Minister and the Chair would take a call to explain why the approach taken in this bill has been adopted and not one similar to that used for lease vehicles, for company cars, where a fringe benefit tax applies. It seems logical that the same could be done here. If it was enforced properly, it works perfectly well with company cars. Why was that approach not taken here? I see the Minister and the Chair looking confused. He looks very confused, and I am wondering whether he will take a call to explain. The member in front of me, Trevor Mallard, assures me that that is what he normally looks like. I give the member more credit than that, and I'm sure he will take a call to explain why this present policy has been adopted, this present approach, rather than one that is similar to that used for company cars, which would be more straightforward. That would be less burdensome to administer, and that would be potentially a better use of taxpayer resource, unless the Minister doesn't care. But I suspect he does, so I look forward to his contribution. This bill also changes the time periods for claiming refunds. It changes the GST rules for business-to-business cross-border transactions and several other GST-related amendments. And let's not forget, this is a party that likes to tinker with GST. They might not tell you that. They might go to an election saying, we won't put up GST. I think John Key said that, didn't he? Oh, my colleague says it was a lie. I couldn't say that.
Order, and the member won't say that.
I did not say that, Mr. Chair. Other members may have a view. But Mr. Key, in my view, did say he wouldn't put GST out, and then he did. And then he did. We can call that what we will. We can call that what we will. He said one thing, and then he did another thing. He said we will not put up GST, and then he put up GST. The members opposite might like to tell me what that's called over the other side of the House. It might just be what happens. It might be that we live in a dynamic environment, that things change with time, and we can change our principles when it suits. That might be the approach that government takes, but we on this side of the House believe in higher principles. We believe everyone should pay their fair share when it comes to tax, not just those who can't get through the loopholes. Now, Facebook in 2010 paid just $5,000 in tax in New Zealand. $5,000. 2.2 million users, just $5,000 of tax. The next year that went up to $15,000 worth of tax. Now, 2.2 million users. They say that they're doing nothing that's illegal, and that is true. But just because they're not doing anything illegal doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right. But this government continues to allow multinationals to avoid paying their fair share. They're doing nothing to sort that problem, just as they're doing nothing to stop those wealthiest New Zealanders avoiding paying the top tax rates. This is a government that is protecting the big interests, those at the big end of town. They'll bring in this kind of tax bill that will tinker, that will try and base broaden, that will try to make sure that little loopholes there and there that people from lower income backgrounds can't avoid and some middle income earners can't avoid are taped up. As long as that's fair, we will support that aspect of it. But what we really want to see on this side of the House is an overall fair tax policy that makes sure every New Zealander pays their fair share, that makes sure we can afford the schools and hospitals that our future generations rely on to enjoy the prosperity that we're enjoying now. Those who are wealthy have benefited from those institutions in our society, and they, like everyone else, ought to pay their fair share. Now, most New Zealanders do. Most New Zealanders don't quibble with that. But it is those who are the very wealthiest that are avoiding this, and this government is on their side and not on the side of those ordinary New Zealanders who go about their day-to-day business, working hard, trying to save, but experiencing a New Zealand where the Kiwi dream of owning your own house is getting further and further and further away. Labor policies will change that. We will bring in 10,000 affordable homes, 10,000 homes, affordable homes every year for 10 years to make sure that there are affordable homes. We will introduce a power policy that will ensure that power prices drop for ordinary New Zealanders. We care about those ordinary New Zealanders who are struggling. Mr Key says that that ordinary New Zealanders are paying about the right amount for electricity. We disagree. But I'll come back to the tax issue, Mr Chair, which is that this bill is a tinkering bill. We'll support the tinkering for the meantime, but we think rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic is not enough.
Mr. Chair. I call the honourable member Andrew Williams.
Thank you.